Hi guys, for those who are looking for jobs in Canada and they want to move with their family, I got good news for you. I got all this information, so please don't forget to watch this video up to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Let's start. So in this video, I'm gonna cover all the questions that you have regarding you wanting to move to Canada. So watch this video up to the end, and please, if you're new here, kindly subscribe to my channel. I remember my name is Faiza Neshika, and this channel is called Faiza Neshika Travel, and I'll be answering all your questions in this video. If you have any other questions, please drop your comments and I will answer it. So let's start immediately. So work in Canada. Canadian work permit and visa process. A work permit is a legal document permitting a foreign national to engage in employment while inside of Canada. Each year, Canada issues about 500,000 work permits to temporary foreign workers around the world. Canada is a prime destination for many foreign nationals who are seeking employment opportunities. So, Canada work permit overview. All these are questions that I'm going to ask. So, who is eligible to work in Canada? Most foreign nationals require a permit to be eligible to work in Canada. So to apply for work permit, most candidates will require a Canadian job offer supported by a labor market impact assessment. There are some exceptions to this requirement, where foreign workers can apply for work permit without the labor market impact assessment or a job offer. Example of this include a recent graduate from a Canadian designated learning institute, or the spouse of someone already on a Canadian work or study permit. All right. Candidates who qualify to apply for a work permit must also meet the following eligibility requirements. First, demonstrate their intent to leave once their work authorization expires. 2, prove they have sufficient funds to support them and their family in Canada and to return home. 3, are not criminally or medically inadmissible to Canada. 4, plan to work with an eligible employer. 5, can provide any requested document that prove their eligibility to enter Canada. So, types of Canadian work permits. There are many different options for obtaining a Canadian work permit. Some work permits require a job offer from a Canadian employer. Some require that the employer provide a labor market impact assessment, while others require that a person has some sort of connection to Canada, for example, previous education, spousal support, sponsorship, etc. Please refer to the following categories below to determine the work permit which best suits your qualification. So, whether you want to work there as a temporary foreign worker program, you can check on that, you can Google on that and get all that information, and many others categories. Now, let's proceed. How to obtain a Canadian work permit. The process of obtaining a work permit in Canada varies greatly depending on which type of permit a person is applying for. For example, an international student studying in Canada will oftentimes be automatically issued authorization to work part-time as a part of their study permit authorization. Most closed work permit applications require that a foreign national has an official job offer from a Canadian employer, which is supported by a labor market impact assessment. Even those who are under the labor market impact assessment or exempt from requiring a work permit should be aware of the unique documentation they need to prepare in order to ensure they are granted entry to Canada. There are two general pathways for obtaining a Canadian work permit: a closed, that is a restricted work permit, and an open work permit. Closed work permits are tied to specific employers. This means that a foreign national issued a closed work permit must remain working with the same employer at the same location unless they change their work permit. So please pay attention so that you know all this information so that you are able to follow all the rules and regulations. If I have a Canadian job offer, am I eligible to apply for a work permit? This is a very common question and people asking this. So yes, here are the answers. Having a Canadian job offer does not necessarily mean you are eligible to apply for a work permit. A job offer must meet certain requirements to be considered valid for certain work permit application. In most cases, in order to be eligible for a work permit, an applicant job offer must be either 1, supported by a positive labor market impact assessment, or exempt from requiring an labor market impact assessment. It is important to note that the province of Quebec has its own process of determining the validity of an offer of employment. Why am I allowed to do a Canadian work permit? Your physical work permit outlines the specific restriction attached to your authorization. Those limitations will mainly be determined by the type of work permit you are eligible for. Conditions may include the type of work you are engaged in, where and for whom you can work, and how long you can work in Canada. All work permit holders are prohibited from working at a business where is are grounds to suspect a risk of sexual exploitation of some workers. Work permit holders are not permanent residents of Canada and must leave the country by the end of the authorized stay. However, if you are working in Canada and would like to remain permanent, then you have to complete our free assessment form to receive a full evaluation of your immigration options. Can my family be included on my work permit application? If you're applying for an employer-supported work permit, you may be eligible to have your spouse and dependent children accompany you to Canada. If your children are school age and are in Canada, they may attend Canadian education institution without requiring a separate study permit. Your spouse or partner may also be eligible to apply for an open work permit, allowing them to work for any employer in Canada. How much does a Canadian work permit cost? The processing fee for a closed work permit is around 155 Canadian dollars per person, or 255 per person, that is Canadian dollars, for an open work permit. If you are restoring a work permit or applying as a group of performing artists, additional fees will apply. So how do I apply for a work permit? These are good questions. I know so many people asking these questions. So please watch this video up to the end and kindly don't forget to subscribe. So how do I apply for a work permit? The application procedure is different depending on which type of work permit you need. The first step is determining which work permit is best for you. If you need help figuring out the application, simply contact the website in Canada or .org, and of course you'll get all that information. What documents are required to apply for Canadian work permit? Here are the information. The document required for a work permit in Canada will depend on the type of permit you're applying for. Applicants may need to provide the following document as part of their work permit application. 1. Completed application form. 2. Proof of status in Canada, if applicable. 3. Family member proof of status, if applicable. The next is labor market impact assessment, if applicable. Also, written offer of employment, if applicable. Your CV or your resume, marriage certificate, certificate d'acceptance de Quebec, if applicable, proof that you meet the job requirements, valid copy of your passport, copy of education credentials, medical exam results, evidence of financial means to stay in Canada and return to your home country, proof of payment of applicable government fees, then recent passport size photo. So, biometrics for Canadian work permit. What does it entail? IRCC currently has a temporary measures in place that exempt applicants applying for work permit from within Canada. Candidates outside of Canada are still required to provide biometrics upon receiving biometric instruction letter. You can get all the information in the Government of Canada website. Alright guys? So, police clearance for Canadian work permits. This is very important. Please pay attention. The visa officer reviewing your application may ask you to provide police clearance certificate. Depending on where you're applying from, this document may be part of your application checklist and must be provided with your initial submission. Work permits applicants may be required to provide a police clearance certificate from any country that they have in for the last period of 6 months or more past the age of 18 years old. Why? Because they want to confirm, are you law-abiding citizen? That's what they want to know. Did you break any laws? That's what they want to find out. So it's very important to have this document. Medical exam for Canadian work permit. Foreign nationals that apply to work in Canada may need to complete a medical exam depending on their intended length of stay, where they have lived, and what occupation they'll work in. If you intend to work in Canada for less than 6 months, you will likely not require a medical exam, with some exemption. In the case that you intend to work in a job that brings you into close contact with people, or are an agricultural worker that has been to certain countries, you will need a medical exam. If you are planning to work in Canada for longer than 6 months, you will be required to take a medical exam if one of the following conditions will apply. 1. You have lived or traveled to one of the countries listed in Canada. You can find out all that information on Google, and of course you find out if you need medical exam, that is on Canadian website. You intend to work in an occupation where you will be in close contact with people listed in the above mentioned countries. Medical exam must be completed in a panel physically designated by IRCC. You can find a panel near your IRC in the website that is under the Canadian government organization. Photo requirement for Canadian work permit. Foreign national applying for work permit in Canada must provide a passport size photo with their application. You can get all that information under the Canadian website, that is canadian.org website. How long will it take to process my work permit application? It depends. The process time for work permit application depends on the type of permit and the applicant country of residence at the time of application. Processing time range anywhere from a few weeks to several months. How long will it take to process my labor market impact assessment application? There are two types of labor market impact assessment application: a regular one and a simplified. The simplified is only available in the province of Quebec. The regular one is processed on a case-by-case basis, with processing time varying greatly from applicant to applicant. Generally, it takes a minimum of 5 months to receive a response on a regular labor market impact assessment application. If an employer is eligible for Canada Global Talent Stream, they may qualify for expedited labor market impact assessment processing. The simplified labor market impact assessment completed for Quebec employment is usually processed in approximately 2 to 3 months. What is the rate of success for work permit labor market impact assessment application? It is impossible to give a rate of success for work permit or labor impact assessment application, as all applications are processed on a case-by-case basis. If an applicant meets the requirement of the labor market impact assessment, the application should be approved. However, applications are assessed by individual officers, each exercising their own discretion in choosing whether or not to approve a work permit application. How can I check the status of my work permit application? All right, if you submit an online work permit application, you may check their status through their online account, which you can find in the also government Canadian.org website. Reasons for a work permit application is refused. Here are the following, and I know this is a very common question that people are looking for and they want answers, so pay attention. Receiving a work permit refusal can be devastating. There are many reasons a work permit can be refused. If it is unclear why your application was refused, applying for GCMS notes may help get a better idea and can help address the officer's concern if you decide to reapply. Here are some common reasons for work permit refusal. 1. The officer was not convinced that you could adequately perform your intended work. 2. The officer is not convinced that you will return to your home country at the end of your authorized stay in Canada. 3. You do not meet the criteria for the work permit you applied for. All right, so how can I include my spouse and dependents on my work permit application? All that information you can get. If you're applying for a closed Canadian work permit, your spouses may be eligible for an open work permit. If your spouse is eligible, they will need to apply for their own work permit. In most cases, they must apply for this permit online. How do I activate my work permit? How you can activate your work permit will depend on where you're applying from and how you're applying. Activating your work permit after applying from within Canada. Activating your work permit after applying from outside Canada. Activating your work permit after applying from port of entry. So let me answer these questions. Activating your work permit after applying from within Canada. If your application is approved after applying for work permit from within Canada, you will receive an approval letter from IRCC. In the case that you applied online, the approval letter will appear in your account. If you submitted a paper-based application, the letter will arrive at your mailing address. Once you have received your approval letter, your physical work permit will arrive by mail. The permit will arrive already activated and you can use it to work in Canada. All right. Activating your work permit after applying from outside Canada. If your application is approved after applying from outside of Canada, you'll receive a letter with instruction on how to obtain your physical work permit at the Canadian Port of Entry. In the case that you applied online, the instruction letter will appear on your online account. If you applied on paper, you'll receive the letter to your mailing address. Activating your work permit after applying from the Port of Entry. Certain applicants may be eligible to apply for a work permit at the port of entry to Canada. If you're applying for a work permit at the border, you will need to bring documents that support your eligibility. If approved, the officer may print the work permit right away at the border. Your permit can be used right away. How to find jobs in Canada? It may feel daunting to begin search for employment in Canada. Thankfully, there are many resources for those seeking an official job offer from a Canadian employer. When beginning the job hunt, we recommend making use of Canadian job hunt resources listed below. Be sure to take the time to prepare your resume and tailor your social media presence before sending out any applications. So, benefits of working in Canada. There are so many benefits of working for in Canada. One, you are able to working in Canada has many benefits. Canadian labor laws ensure that workplace has a high degree of safety and that all employers follow certain laws and regulations to ensure the well-being of their employees. As well, Canadian wages are competitive and foreign nationals are required by law to be offered wages equivalent to their Canadian counterparts. Finally, some Canadian work permits enable the spouse and children of workers to accompany them to Canada. Another significant benefit for those interested in migrating to Canada permanently is that by gaining Canadian work experience, a foreign national may increase their eligibility for a number of Canadian permanent residence programs. The following programs award value in varying degrees for Canadian work experience. For example, there is Express Entry, there is Provisional Mini Program, there is Quebec Immigration Process, and Atlantic Immigration Policy. So how can I extend my work permit? This is a very important question that people are asking, and of course there are many other questions. So I'm gonna I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm gonna answer this and then of course I'm gonna end my video. So how to extend your work permit in Canada? Generally, temporary foreign workers that are eligible to extend their work permit must apply online. If you plan to extend your work permit, it is recommended to do so at least 30 days before the expiry date of your current permit. While this is a recommendation, technically, an applicant has until the last day of expiry to apply for the extension request. What is my work permit number? You can find your work permit number on the top right-hand corner of your permit and begin with the letter U. Can I work in Canada without a work permit? That is a very good question. Can you work in Canada without a work permit? Foreign national must obtain a work permit to work in Canada with a few exceptions. Can I get a Canadian work permit without a job offer? Foreign nationals interested in working in Canada usually require a written job offer from a Canadian employer to apply for a work permit. However, there are some circumstances that allow foreign workers to apply for an open work permit without a job offer, which allows them to work anywhere in Canada for any employer. Do Canadian work permits have an age limit? Foreign workers must be at least 18 years to obtain a Canadian work permit. There are no maximum age for work permit applicants unless applying under the International Experience Canada program. Can I apply for Canadian health insurance while on work permit? Healthcare in Canada is administered by each province and territory, which operates their own health insurance plan. Certain provinces allow work permit holders to apply for provisional health insurance coverage. Most provinces require residents to be physically present for a certain number of days before becoming eligible for health insurance. What is the difference between Canadian work permit and visa? This is a very good question. What is the difference? A Canadian work permit authorizes foreign nationals to work in Canada, where a visa is a travel document that is used to enter the country. A visa or temporary resident visa is a physical sticker placed in your passport that acts as a travel document, allowing foreign nationals to enter Canada or transit through a Canadian airport. If you leave Canada, you cannot return without a valid visa, even if you have a valid work permit. Do I need IELTS to apply for a Canadian work permit? Canada does not require individuals applying for work permit to write the IELTS or any other English or French language exam. However, if the job offers specifically require French and or English skills and the applicant is from a non-French or English country, evidence of a language abilities such as language tests could be required by the officer. How long are Canadian work permits valid? Canadian work permits are typically valid for a period of 1 to 2 years with some exceptions. A visa officer will usually not issue a work permit for longer than the validity of applicant passport or past the validity indicated on the applicant labor market impact assessment. A work permit will also be issued for longer than the foreign national has applied to stay in Canada for or beyond the duration that is required for the job offer. The length of a work permit may also be shorter depending on the program the applicant is applying under. All right? Do I need my Canadian work permit to enter Canada? If you travel outside of Canada, you will need your work permit in addition to a valid travel document to re-enter. A work permit allows you to work in Canada, but alone does not permit you to travel to Canada. To come to Canada, you will need either a temporary resident visa or an electronic travel authorization in addition to valid passport. Can my employer sponsor me to work in Canada? Good question. Canadian employers don't sponsor candidates to work in Canada, but can assist in bringing foreign workers by securing labor market impact assessment or submitting an electronic job offer. Canada requires that any Canadian employer who wishes to hire a foreign worker must obtain a labor market impact assessment or submit an electronic job offer. Once an employer secure an labor market impact assessment or the A-number electronic job offer, it can be used to apply for a Canadian work permit. So guys, those are the questions which are being very commonly asked. If you check on Google, you find all these questions. So this video, I hope it has really helped you. And if you still want to go through it again, you can repeat this video again, watch it several times so that you get all this information. Remember, this information is going to help you to have a smooth transition on your way to Canada. So thank you guys for watching this video up to the end, and thank you so much. And please don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, bye bye and God bless you.